Hello again, this is Dr. Jimmy. It's the same day, June 1st. And I'm starting now my second video for my new series on the history of Halloween Horror Nights 22. Once you're inside, there's no way out. And in my previous video I talked about some of the strange setbacks that had happened for the people trying to put the event on and how they had to deal with some of the problems. And I began talking about a weird rumor that had popped up early in the year about Penn and Teller. Now, part of the reason for this rumor, not just the tweet, somebody noticed that they went back and checked the schedules for Penn and Teller's shows in Las Vegas, where they perform, that there were all these empty nights where they wouldn't be performing in September and October. But what would they be doing on those nights? Would they be in Orlando for horror nights? For a haunted house? That was what the speculation was about. And that the thing that really fueled it was there was a survey. Every year marketing puts out these surveys with questions. Would you like to see this or that at horror nights? Sometimes these things, some people think sometimes these things might be a clue as to what's going to happen that year. And there was a survey that said, would you like to see Penn and Teller at horror nights? Or something, be involved in some sort of interactive haunted attractions. And they thought, aha, that's a clue, that's what they're going to do. Well, those of us who know a bit more about those surveys say, well, that doesn't make that much sense because they ask all sorts of silly questions. One year they asked about Freddy, Jason and Leatherface coming back right after 2007 when they'd been there. They didn't come back, did they? No, not so many years later, but not back then. They had asked, for example, in a survey, would you like to see an event all themed to the works of Stephen King? Well, we all knew Stephen King will not allow this to ever be, so until he changes his mind completely, we'll never see that. So that didn't mean that was going to happen. There was one, I think 2008, a survey saying, would you like to see an event where Jill, Jack's ex-wife, takes over? And of course that didn't happen either, but there were some people who were certain it would happen in 2008, but that's not what we had at all. We had Bloody Mary. So what does this mean? What would the survey, does the survey question have any relevance? We disputed that. And furthermore, the survey wasn't even for Orlando. It was a Hollywood survey for the event there. And said, well, there you go, this can't be right. And besides, we did know that there was some connection with Hollywood and Penn and Teller because they had performed at Horror Nights way back in 1992, I think, a show. It's much, if they are coming to Orlando, they're probably going to do a show at Universal, not necessarily even in the studios. It might be at Islands or even at City Walk. They might be opening up some kind of theme restaurant. Maybe they're going to do some kind of show, or maybe they're going to be filming one of their programs in the at the studio sound stages. They film all kinds of programming there, right? Maybe that's what it's about. It could be all sorts of things that make a lot more sense than a freaking haunted house based on Penn and Teller. That's such a ridiculous idea. It didn't seem to make sense. It seems to me that the rumor had been pretty much debunked. Here's where the irony comes in. So I thought, when I started making my videos, I think it was in March, for April Fool's prank that year, I thought, what a perfect joke to use for April Fools. And I went ahead and said that there would be coming, in fact, they'd be the icons for the whole event, and that they would be making a haunted house, a signature house, and they would design the house themselves along with art and design, and they would put into the house some interactive things so the guests could play along with it, because that fits their style, and they would actually make personal appearances at the house themselves. All of which I thought were utterly ridiculous ideas that could never actually happen. Oh, the irony. So I thought that'd make a wonderful April Fool's joke. When it turned out there would be such a house, although not at Islands, and all the other silly things that I came up with for the April Fool's gag, of course, didn't happen, because that was the whole point. It was an April Fool's gag, for Christ's sakes. Fake houses, that was the idea. But when it turned, when they did announce the house for real, and it turned out that there really was going to be a house like that, no one was more shocked than me. And I thought, holy crap, now people will think I actually know about the event in advance. Ah, God. But it would make people believe my April Fool's jokes in future years. I thought that would be quite funny and amusing. Oh well. And something else interesting happened right about this time. If you remember, back in 2010, there was a mysterious person giving out cryptic clues for the event, calling themselves Emmerich Belasco. The following year, 2011, they continued, slightly different to a modus operandi, however, and using the name Autumn Wind. But, in fact, that same person, who cannot be named for safety reasons, that person decided it was just getting too risky and didn't want to get any trouble caused for anybody who might get in trouble because of what they were doing, and decided they would not do that anymore and let the few of us who had received some of this information no more cryptic clues from me, sorry, bye-bye. So that wasn't going to happen. That wasn't going to happen that year. And that suddenly became a weird opportunity for me, because by some strange coincidence, it was shortly after that that I myself got some actual inside information. I never expected that, but somebody, who also will not be named, began to leak some information directly to an intermediary who does not work for Universal and could not be harmed by it. That person, however, didn't choose to broadcast anything themselves, but told me so that I could tell everyone else. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not entirely sure who the leak was. I have no real idea, because I've never spoken to this person. I don't have this firsthand, you see. So I got that info and I thought, well, I can become the new Emmerich Belasco, like little Cindy wanting to be the new Shirley Temple on the Brady Bunch. I thought, oh, wonderful, I could do that, how exciting. And I, in my hubris and arrogance, decided to be the great cryptic clue giver. Of course, we all know that had some negative repercussions, and that's why I've repented of that sort of thing. I will not be posting any cryptic clues, as I said before. But back then I started my cryptic statements, you see, and that's how that all started. And with my cryptic statements, I started giving out these clues, and all too many people figured out too many of the clues too quickly. Is that a cat's tail? It is a cat's tail. There it goes. Little bobtail. Why? I think whoever was leaking leaked to more than one person, and so quite a few people actually had house lists already, and all they had to do was play match-up games. Oh, this clue means that house, this and thus were able to figure it out so quickly. I learned very quickly that this wasn't the best idea, even though I was too stupid or stubborn to quit, as I continued for a couple more years after that, just trying to make it a little harder next time, I kept telling myself. Oh well. However, it does have some bearing, because I knew about a couple of houses that later turned out to be some more horrible setbacks for our friends at Art and Design and Creative. Oh dear, it wasn't done. They weren't done yet with going back to the drawing board and trying to figure out what they were going to do next. Because one of the haunted houses that I learned about was an American Werewolf in London. Yes, in fact, it wasn't the first time that they had wanted to do a house based on that motion picture. See, way back in 2008, they had wanted to do an American Werewolf in London house. But even though Universal had the rights to release that movie on home video, they didn't have the full rights to the movie. Apparently, John Landis still had some of those rights revert to himself, and he had sold some rights to the Weinstein brothers to make a reboot remake. And so those plans were still in effect, and I think that's what interfered enough that in 2008 they had to scrap their plans for Werewolf. Oh dear. Even though, of course, eventually they get it done. In fact, they eventually do it twice. But that's for a later video. But in 2008, they had actually designed some of it on paper for an entranceway, a facade of the Slaughtered Lamb pub in Britain. And so they started redesigning it and turned it into an American bar called the Butchered Buck. And the house became Creatures, a very different house, although it did feature a bar set as the opening of the house, like Werewolf would. And it was located in Soundstage 22, which is where they always thought Werewolf should go. And eventually it would go there, twice. But in 2008, it couldn't be done. So they wanted to do it again. They try again in 2012. And so they were all planning to do it, and it would go into Soundstage 22, but this time, once again, they ran into a snafu. I think maybe the Weinsteins, maybe John Landis wasn't ready. I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, they couldn't quite secure it. And so they had to scrap Werewolf. And as a result, they had to come up with something else to go in Soundstage 22. That would eventually turn out to be Silent Hill. We'll get to that in a bit. Probably not in this video. Another house they planned this year, and this was a bigger setback, a really big setback. It was going to be a house, the one that was in Soundstage 44, the Hercules Xena building. They were going to do a house based on the legendary Chupacabra. Yes, the strange creature of southwestern American and Mexican and even Puerto Rican, oddly enough, mythology or legend, urban legend, a creature that supposedly sucks the blood out of little goats. I guess that's how you get screaming goats. Ah, it's sucking me. That's what Chupacabra means, goat sucker. And they find these goats drained of blood, and instead of blaming it on a coyote or something, they think, oh, it must have been the El Chupacabra. That doesn't sound right. Shouldn't it be La Chupacabra? Oh, well. They say El Chupacabra. I don't know why, because it's got a feminine ending. Goat, cabra, is feminine, so Chupacabra should be a feminine noun, but for some reason it's always El Chupacabra, so I don't know why they did that. And there's all sorts of theories about what this creature is. It's supposed to be somewhat reptilian with spines. Sometimes they give it bat-like wings or horns, almost like a demon or goblin. But nasty fangs, definitely great big bulging burning eyes. Scary beast. According to some, this is an extraterrestrial creature. Others think, oh no, it must be the product of some military laboratory experiment gone awry. Others think they're purely supernatural creatures of evil. Ooh, whatever the Chupacabra is, maybe just a cryptozoological animal. It has not yet been discovered by modern science. Whatever it is, the Chupacabra is very mysterious and probably doesn't exist. Like I said, probably just coyotes eating those goats. But, or mountain lions or something, and the blood just drains out after it's been killed or something. Or some douchebag kills the goats for fun. There's some weird fucking people in this world. But getting back to it, it was going to be a rather nifty house based on this legend. They actually started building the house in the building in the summer of 2012. When once again interference from high up in Comcast. They decided they'd already earmarked that location, that building, for demolition, to be torn down and a new Transformers attraction to be put in there. But at that time, when they started planning the house, it wasn't going to be torn down until late in the year, maybe November, December. And it would be, but somewhere they said, let's bring the schedule up. Let's move up the schedule so that it opens earlier. Because we need a new attraction right away so people don't get all, you know, impatient for Harry Potter. We'll have a new attraction before that. Also, we don't want it to open the same time as Harry Potter. That would be not very good. You want to open that at least a year before. So let's get it started now. And so the people are in there, fake productions, building the sets, building the haunted house, and someone comes in and says, excuse me, you're going to have to leave. You've got a permit here, demolishment. This whole building has to come down now. You got to get out for your own safety. Take those sets with you, or tear them down right now. Stop what you're doing. And they had to. They had no choice. So that whole house was scrapped because the building it was supposed to be in was torn down. In the summer of 2012, the building was gone. And then they started building a Transformers ride instead. There it goes. Now we've lost a house location. Now we're down to 6 houses. Holy crap, are we only going to have 6 houses? That was the fear. What could they do? Well, this was a huge embarrassment for the Hollywood and marketing people, and it gave us an actual opportunity for art and design and creative in Orlando. They could say, well, you see, you screwed up on your great, wonderful plans. Now we can fix it if you let us. Here's a pitch. And they pitched, okay, here's what we can do. We can put in a new house. Here's what we can do. There's a structure, sort of a gazebo-like thing across the parade building. We can take the Mardi Gras sets. We can take the Macy's, the floats, the Macy's Mardi Gras ones, put them in there, wrap them up nicely so that it won't get wet and ruined in the rain. Put them in that gazebo. Then we still have to have Superstar in the front, but we can use the back half. Now will be all clear the parade building. We can put the haunted house there. We just won't go in the front, we'll go in the back way. And we can have a whole haunted house in there. We can do it right quick, and we've got a really good idea for a house. Remember Dead Exposure, one of the most popular haunted houses a few years ago? Something just like that with the strobe lights. It can be done quickly and cheaply, only instead of zombies, because we've got zombies elsewhere this year, we'll put in Universal Classic Monsters. Everyone loves Universal Classic Monsters, and we'll do that in this Dead Exposure style. It can be done quickly and cheaply and effectively. It'll be a really nifty house, and we'll stay at 7 houses. We won't drop down to 6. You don't want us to drop down to 6. I said, no, we don't. That's a good idea. Do that. And here's another thing we can do. We can have a sort of theme after all. Now that you found out that the other ideas didn't work so well, listen to us. We can come up with a theme that will fit in with this whole construction thing. All this construction is causing trouble. Well, hey, that's going to be our theme. Universal Studios was built on a cemetery, just like in Poltergeist. And they left the bodies there, and the angry spirits are going to be pissed off from all the construction digging down where they're and disturbing their rest. And so the cemetery will just reappear in the streets. Here's how we'll do it. We'll have movable sets. But yeah, we can wheel them out just before the event starts each night, and then wheel them back off when it ends. And they'll be out of sight, and then the parade can go through the streets as usual, and every night we can put them right back out. And those will be nifty little sets that can move in and out, and that way we can have something happening in the streets. But it won't be a set scare zone. We'll have those roaming hordes. What we can do is we can use the hordes to beta test Legendary Truth, which we want to do as a sort of interactive game using new technology. We can test the new technology, see how well it works. At the same time, we'll test and see if this concept works. We won't call it Legendary Truth this year, because we're saving that for next time if it works real well, and hopefully it will. We might even be able to upcharge on this. And I said, hey, that's a good idea. Yeah, we'll do that too. And so TJ Manarino and Rick Spencer, they managed to get to sell this idea. And so, hey, goody goody. Now we've got sort of a theme. Now we've got something going on for interactive games, and we've got streets that are going to be better than just roaming hordes. It'll be roaming hordes, but we've got some sort of backstory. Now, finally, even if we don't have an icon, and we also got back up to 7 houses. So things started to look better. Of course, we didn't know that was going on until later when we started hearing about the event officially through the website and through a television commercial. But they, again, maybe budget, I don't know. They used the same commercial in Orlando they did in Hollywood. In fact, it was kind of using Hollywood creatures. You have the kids running through the streets from zombies. They come to the Universal Gate, and hopefully they're going to go in the gate and be safe. They go in, but once they get in, the zombies are outside coming after them. But when they turn around, there's all sorts of other strange creatures behind them, creatures that I think were used at Hollywood rather than Orlando, if they were used at all. Uh-oh, they're trapped. Once you're inside, there's no way out. And that was used both coasts that year. So the event then, and I have the brochures. Again, heavily publicizing IPs. There are 3 versions of the event guide or brochure. This one, I think, was for whenever the event closed at midnight. It features the Walking Dead zombie for Halloween Horror Nights 22. When the park closed at 1 o'clock in the morning, they featured Silent Hill with one of the sexy Silent Hill nurses. And when the event closed at 2 a.m., they used Alice Cooper with this design of Alice Cooper. You see. Inside the brochure, oh, here's some of the merchandising. We'll talk about that later. The wonderful merchandise. The first mini vinyl figure for Horror Nights came out that year, and some of the t-shirts and other items, including the first, when they started doing shirts for individual houses as well as the event itself. And here is the lovely guide map showing you where everything was going on. I hope you can see all that. Shows you where everything was going on that year. So I've now reached another end point. So when I come to the third video, on the third video I shall actually begin talking about the individual houses of Halloween Horror Nights 22.